My beloved child, hear me now with trembling urgency. Time is running faster than you realize. You think you have tomorrow, but tomorrow is not promised. I have knocked at the door of your heart again and again, yet you keep saying, later. But later is a lie the enemy uses to chain your destiny. Eternity is moving even as you sit here, and every second you delay is a second stolen from what I have prepared for you. This is not just another message. It is a rescue call. If you turn away, you may never feel this moment again. But if you listen until the end, your life can shift forever. The clock doesn't slow down, and the shadows of deception are growing thicker while you delay. You believe you have time to decide tomorrow, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. Your refusal to open the door has already cost you victories that should have been yours, strength that you should have had, and protection that should have shielded you. I am not saying these words to frighten you, but to awaken you from a dangerous and comfortable slumber that blinds you to what is at stake. As I stand here knocking, the enemy is prowling, seeking to steal what belongs to you, to rob the destiny I have written with my blood, and to shackle the joy I intended to crown you with. Your hesitation is fueling his advance. Why do you keep me waiting when I hold the very answers you've begged for, the healing you've cried for, the direction you've pleaded for, and the love you thought was lost forever? Still, you keep the door bolted, whispering later, while the weight of unseen storms draws closer. I will not force myself upon you, because love requires your choice. But understand this truth. The window of mercy is not an endless hallway. The longer you remain undecided, the louder the consequences will become, until your voice is drowned out by regret. I have been standing with open arms, not just to forgive, but to transform, not just to comfort, but to restore, not just to enter your house, but to become the very foundation beneath it. Yet, the sound of my knocking is being smothered by the voices you entertain, the distractions you feed, the fears you rehearse, and the pride that tells you there is always another chance waiting tomorrow. Child, let the urgency of this moment sear into your spirit. Time is thinner than you think. The cracks in the door are already showing, and the light is slipping away. The longer you resist, the harder it will be to hear me when the storms rage louder. This is not a casual invitation. It is a rescue call. This is the moment when heaven leans over your life and says, decide now, because I cannot cover what you refuse to surrender. I cannot heal what you keep hidden. I cannot lead where you will not follow. But if you will rise now, if you will throw wide the door of your heart, you will find me standing there, not in judgment, but with unstoppable mercy, not with punishment, but with unshakable promise, not with wrath, but with a love so fierce it refuses to abandon you, even when you have abandoned yourself. As your Savior, your friend, your Redeemer, I am pleading with you to open to me now, before the night falls heavier, before the storm closes in, and before the door of opportunity that is open today is shut forever. I am still here, waiting for you, but I will not wait endlessly. The urgency you feel burning through these words is not from your imagination. It is my spirit tugging with one last thread of warning. Child, unlock the door because time is running out, and I am still waiting. Every second that passes, you must understand what is slipping through your fingers. Not just missed moments or postponed decisions, but irreversible exchanges. You are trading sacred purpose for fleeting pleasures and eternal treasures for temporary comforts, all because you assumed there would always be another chance, another reminder, another whisper. But child, there are crossroads in life where a wrong turn cannot be undone, where my covering cannot protect what your pride refuses to surrender. You are nearing one of those junctions right now. This delay is no longer harmless. It is spiritual sabotage. You cannot see the full price of your hesitation, but I can. And that is why I am pressing closer with this warning. Before you cross the point of no return, before you forfeit what was designed for your legacy, your lineage, and your life's calling, you have grown too comfortable with mercy, as if it were an unlimited currency. But even mercy has boundaries when it is continually rejected, and you are standing on the very edge of those boundaries now. Yes, I still love you. And yes, I still long to lift you. But there is a cost to continued neglect, and it does not only touch your soul, it affects generations you haven't even met yet, destinies you were assigned to unlock, and people you were meant to carry toward their healing. With every moment you spend waiting, that responsibility shifts further from your reach. I am not saying this to push you into fear, but to remove the illusion that passivity is harmless. Your delay is the enemy's delight because he thrives in your indecision. He builds strongholds in your postponements and gains ground in your refusal to act. The longer you stall, the more footholds he claims in places meant to be my sanctuary. Right now, you feel the tension between comfort and calling, between fear and obedience, between convenience and surrender. I see that war playing out deep inside you. But child, your window is thinning. I will not keep this door ajar forever, not because I want to leave, but because even I honor your choices, and I cannot enter where I am continually denied. The weight of this moment is holy, and it demands an answer. No more delays. No more distractions. No more pretending you're undecided when your heart knows exactly what I am asking. Give me your full yes. Not your half promises or emotional reaction. Not your convenient agreement during storms, but your absolute surrender. This season will not cycle back around. This particular grace you feel tugging on you now will not wait indefinitely. When it lifts, you will feel the void, not because I left you, but because you kept refusing what was available while it was within reach. Child, I do not want to see you mourning what you could have embraced, regretting what you were meant to rejoice in, or watching from a distance what you were supposed to be walking in, simply because you assumed time was always on your side. Do you not know that time bows to no one but the Father? When he signals that the window is shutting, no person, no prayer, no cry can reopen it again. So, before you lose what cannot be recovered, before your delay becomes your deepest regret, and before your indecision becomes the reason you miss the miracle, respond now. Because right now is still grace. Right now is still access. Right now the veil is not yet closed, but it is moving. The sound of my voice today is not just love. It is warning wrapped in compassion, urgency laced with promise. It is me, your Savior, fighting for your attention before you step into a darkness you were not meant to taste. Hear me. Every second you remain unmoved is a second the enemy uses to steal what I died to give you. And I will not let that happen without giving you every possible chance to act. So take it now. This is the hour. This is the breath. This is the urgency sounding in your spirit. I am still here, a bare whisper away, but I will not knock forever. There was a time when I gently nudged your heart, not with thunder or fire, but with stillness, through the quiet ache you felt at night, through moments of longing you could not explain, through the eyes of strangers who unknowingly echoed my truth. But you mistook my gentleness for something optional, and now the volume must rise. Not because my nature has changed, but because your resistance has grown louder than my whisper. You trained yourself to ignore the inner pull, brushing it aside like a passing emotion, when it was me, the one who formed you, trying to draw you back before the shadows deepened. As the spiritual climate thickens, I must break through the fog you have allowed to settle over your soul. I will not stand by while you walk toward collapse without interruption. Child, this is no longer a season of suggestions. It is a moment of reckoning. I will not sugarcoat the truth when your eternity hangs in the balance. You have allowed distractions to steal sacred time and compromise to build walls between us. But I am not addressing your behavior alone. I am targeting the root, the place inside you where pride and pain built a shelter and locked me out while pretending to follow me outwardly. I am done speaking in symbolic language when clarity is what will save you. I am raising my voice, not in anger, but in fierce love, because you are drifting faster than you realize. Your silence has become an agreement with the enemy's plan for you. You think delay is neutral, but delay is a silent yes to destruction. My voice cannot compete with everything you keep entertaining unless you choose to silence the noise and prioritize what is eternal. I have called you by name more times than you can count. Now, I am speaking not just for comfort, but for confrontation, because your soul is more valuable than your comfort, your future more sacred than your schedule. I will shake what must be shaken to remove what blocks my presence in your life. The things you once tolerated have begun to turn against you, haven't they? The very voices that once made you feel powerful are now robbing you of peace. That is not a coincidence. That is me stripping away every false comfort, not as punishment, but as preparation for a necessary decision. No more excuses. No more delays. No more pretending you are confused when you know exactly what I have been asking of you. The inner war you feel is not confusion, it is conviction. It will only increase until you either surrender or harden. I warn you, child, if you choose hardness, you will walk into a silence I never intended for you, a spiritual drought that was avoidable. But the choice is yours. I am speaking with urgency now because the time for soft nudges is ending and the season of loud decisions has come. You do not need another confirmation, another dream, or another prophecy because you already know deep within what is required. This moment is not about information. It is about transformation, and transformation begins with obedience. I do not want a reaction. I want a response that says, yes, Lord, I will follow even when it is hard, even when it costs me everything. That kind of response opens doors that fear has kept locked for too long. I am not speaking this way to crush you, but to rescue you before delay becomes disaster, to awaken you before sleep becomes spiritual death, to stir you before you settle into patterns that cannot be reversed without pain. The hour is urgent. The wait is eternal. And this is not a rehearsal. This is the moment heaven watches with bated breath, waiting to see if you will finally take the step you have avoided for so long. I am not angry with you. I am contending for your soul with all of heaven's power behind me. I will not sugarcoat what needs to be shouted, because your destiny is too precious to let you fall into the trap of waiting for a better moment that may never come. Child, I am calling again, but this time, not softly. This time I am roaring over you. Love will not stay silent when death is near. I have declared over you that today is the hour. This cry is not for emotion. It is for eternal impact. You can try to mask it with distractions, drown it in busyness, or bury it under routines. But you know the truth. You have felt my presence press upon your spirit in moments no one else could see. And it was not imagination, emotion, or coincidence. It was me, placing divine tension inside your soul to remind you that I have never stopped pursuing you. You recognized it when your heart raced in the silence, when your conscience trembled, without a single word spoken. When something deep inside you began to stir, every time you stood on the edge of surrender but pulled back, afraid of what full obedience might cost. Child, I saw the tears you quickly wiped away so others wouldn't notice, the lump in your throat when my name pierced through your carefully guarded thoughts, and the way your mind tried to rationalize what your spirit already confirmed. Those nudges were not passing feelings. They were my spirit interceding, reaching through the fog, inviting you back to the place where you belong. But instead of yielding, you hesitated and called it bad timing, not ready, or too much pressure. Every time you silenced the voice inside you, the distance grew. Not because I moved, but because your resistance created a wall my mercy could not tear down without your permission. I will not violate your will, but I will expose what has crept in while you ignored my pull. So many compromises are dressed up as harmless habits, and so many tiny agreements with comfort have now grown into chains. I have been trying to break them from the inside out through conviction, through dreams, through restlessness that was not punishment. It was protection, trying to reroute you before damage settled in permanently. Now you stand in a place where my nudging has grown louder, not because I want to overwhelm you, but because your sensitivity has grown dull, and I am not willing to let you drift further without disruption. My whispers were always meant to woo you, but now they are warnings. Sacred signals that your delay is becoming spiritually dangerous, and your heart knows it. You have begun to notice how the things that once brought satisfaction now leave you hollow, how your laughter feels strained, and how the noise around you cannot quiet the ache within. That is not a sign of failure. That is evidence that my call has never stopped. But child, be warned. There will come a time when the nudges fade, not because I have given up on you, but because repeated resistance can make you numb to what once shook you to your core. I will not let that happen without shaking the ground beneath your indifference, because I love you far too much to stay silent while you slowly slip away. You keep telling yourself you will respond when things are less chaotic, when you are more stable, when your emotions settle. But your spirit is not waiting for a perfect moment. It is waiting for a decision, and that decision must be made before the internal flame flickers out completely. Do not think you can ignore this stirring and still expect the door to remain open indefinitely. Grace is available, yes, but grace ignored eventually transitions into consequences you did not anticipate. I am not speaking from anger. I am pleading from a place of deepest love, because I have seen what is ahead, and I know how dark it becomes when my light is continually rejected. You do not need another confirmation. Your soul has already agreed with me in moments when no one was watching. The time has come to stop pretending you did not feel it. I have interrupted your thoughts during meaningless conversations. I have interrupted your sleep when you tried to shut it all off. I have even used silence to speak louder than words, but you have been afraid to fully face what obedience requires. Now, I am telling you, fear will not save you. Hesitation will not carry you, and delay will not rescue you. The only way forward is full surrender, not partial movement, not emotional response, but actual, immediate yielding. This is not about religion or performance. It is about responding to the voice you have been sensing, the one that has been getting louder because the time to act is narrowing, and the moment to turn fully toward me is now, before the sound becomes distant and the urgency is replaced with regret. Child, I am still drawing you, but this drawing will not last forever. Respond while the stirring is still strong. The interruptions, the sudden closures, the unexplainable delays, and the doors that would not open, no matter how much you pushed. Those were not random events, plotted by chance or unlucky patterns. They were strategic barriers placed by my mercy to keep you from walking into places that would have shattered your purpose, relationships that would have corrupted your character, and situations that would have compromised your soul before you even realized what was happening. But instead of seeing my hand behind the disruption, you called it bad timing, misfortune, or rejection, when in reality, it was me rerouting you because I knew what you could not see. I refused to let you succeed at something that would destroy you from the inside out. Every canceled plan that made you frustrated, every person who walked away without closure, and every opportunity that slipped through your fingers, those were not losses. They were interventions, rescue missions, carried out by heaven before you made a choice that could not be undone. I know you have been confused, wondering why things have not aligned the way you expected. But that is because alignment without obedience leads to collapse. And I would rather disrupt your expectations temporarily than watch your spirit suffer eternally. Child, when you pray for protection, sometimes the answer comes disguised as denial. You have been misinterpreting those moments, not realizing that the very things you saw as setbacks were evidence of my involvement. I have been blocking what your impatience tried to force, not because I delight in your delay, but because I love you too much to let you build on ground that is not stable. You keep asking me why things did not work out and why the timeline did not unfold the way you envisioned. But what you call unanswered prayers, I call divine redirection. If I had allowed you to proceed down the paths you were convinced were right, you would have lost parts of yourself that were never meant to be touched by that kind of trauma. I have preserved you through did not understand, through closed chapters that ended without explanation, and through connections that ended suddenly, not because you were abandoned, but because you were being preserved. I never needed your full understanding for me to execute my plan. I only needed your willingness to trust when clarity was not available. Even when you did not trust, I still protected you anyway. But now, I need you to recognize what you have dismissed, because the warnings are intensifying. If you continue to ignore them, they will not just inconvenience you, they will expose you to storms you were supposed to avoid. The flashing lights, the unease in your gut, and the heaviness that settles over situations that seem appealing on the surface, those are not accidents. They are spiritual indicators screaming that something is off, and you must stop brushing them aside like background noise. When I show you a sign, take it seriously, because I do not issue warnings unless danger is present, and I do not withdraw my peace without purpose. If you feel tension in a place that once brought joy, do not label it as overthinking. Pause and ask me what I am trying to show you. I will never stop giving you signs, but if you continue to ignore them, they will stop serving as protection and start becoming the evidence of what you chose to disregard. I am not trying to punish you with these interruptions. I am pleading with you through them. If you keep walking past them, you will eventually walk into consequences that I tried to shield you from. Child, this is your wake-up call. The repeated patterns, the closed doors, the loss of appetite for what once excited you, and the weight in your chest when you consider going back to what I already called you out of, none of it is meaningless. All of it is mercy wrapped in warning. It is time to stop assigning human logic to spiritual direction. This is not a coincidence. It is covenant protection trying to guide you into the alignment you were born to walk in. If you continue treating my signals as optional, you will miss what was reserved for your obedience. You asked me to lead you, and I am, just not in the way you expected, because I do not lead you to comfort. I lead you to purpose, and purpose requires letting go of what looks safe but is spiritually lethal. Child, recognize the signs before they become your regret, because they were never just disruptions. They were love disguised as detours. What makes this moment so critical is the illusion that surrounds it, the whisper that keeps telling you there's plenty of time left, that tomorrow will welcome you with open arms, and that you can delay obedience without cost. But that voice is not from me. It is the most dangerous lie hell has ever crafted, and it is dressed in comfort, disguised as logic, and cloaked in the familiar rhythm of postponement. It speaks gently to lull you into passivity, convincing you that nothing urgent is unfolding, that you are in control of how long you will be given. But time is not your servant, nor is it yours to command. It is a river flowing toward eternity, and each moment you float without direction is a moment you drift further from the shore you were designed to reach. You cannot see the full measure of what is vanishing with each heartbeat, but I can. I see the opportunities evaporating while you weigh whether surrender is necessary. I see the people waiting on the other side of your obedience. I see the battles that could already be won if you had only stepped forward when I first prompted you. Child, delay is not neutral. It is theft in disguise. While you hesitate, time is doing what it always does. It moves on silently, without mercy for indecision. The deception is that the door will always be there. The moment will always repeat, and the stirring will always feel fresh. But the truth is, these divine invitations have windows, and windows do not wait for convenience. What I offered you yesterday is not promised again in the same way tomorrow. This is not to frighten you. It is to awaken you. You have been lulled into believing that the seasons rotate on your schedule, but in the kingdom, timing is sacred. When a moment of alignment passes, you cannot rewind the heavens to retrieve what you dismissed. You keep assuming there will be a better time, a more peaceful environment, or a calmer heart. But those are excuses clothed in wisdom, and they have already cost you more than you realize. There have been doors I prepared that closed while you were distracted. Connections I ordained that withered while you overanalyzed. Assignments I handed you that were passed on to others because you insisted on waiting until you felt ready. Still, I came back for you because my love does not walk away after one refusal. But this is no longer about one missed chance. It is about a pattern of hesitation becoming a habit. And habits become cycles that bind you until you forget what freedom ever felt like. I am speaking now to break that pattern before it hardens into spiritual paralysis, because you were never meant to live in this loop of almost responding, almost obeying, almost stepping. You were created to walk boldly in the fullness of my plans, and those plans require urgency. Every lie that tells you it is fine to wait is pulling you into a slow sleep, a numbness that will one day leave you stunned that the window closed without warning. While you think nothing is happening, so much is. Angels are waiting for your movement. Assignments are being reshuffled. What was meant for you is being delayed, not because I withheld it, but because you never positioned yourself to receive it. The more you justify the waiting, the easier it becomes to live without the fire, without the ache for me, without the depth of surrender that once called you in the middle of the night. Do you not see how subtle the drift has become? How you have replaced urgency with routine, hunger with comfort, and pursuit with procrastination, and still believe you are on the right path. That is the poison of this deception. It does not come with red flags. It comes with dullness. So I am shaking you not to hurt you, but to pull you out before you sleep through the turning point of your destiny. I am not telling you to panic. I am telling you to move, to respond while this moment is open, to choose action over delay, and to say yes now instead of later, because later has already cost you enough, child. I do not want to see you cry over what could have been, so I am sounding the alarm now. This is the time. This is the chance. And the deception that says you have more is the very thing stealing everything I intended to give you. What you must understand now is that this is not merely a gentle call to return. It is a lifeline being thrown into waters that are rising faster than you realize. While you have been trying to decide if you are ready to respond, the tide around you has already begun to shift. What was once still ground is becoming unstable, not because I want to frighten you, but because spiritual realities do not wait for your comfort. They move on divine timing, and I can no longer afford to speak to you softly when danger is approaching with full force. Child, I am not merely reaching out. I am intervening, intercepting, interrupting your descent before you slip too deep to sense me at all. This is not about inviting you to behave better or to follow rules. It is about me breaking through before the storm that has been circling finally breaches the borders of your life and swallows the things you love most. I am moving to shield you from what your eyes cannot yet see, from consequences that have been gathering in silence, from chains being forged in darkness while you entertain the illusion that everything is fine. I see the traps being set behind the scene, the conversations the enemy is having about you, and the plans being drafted in realms you do not perceive. I will not allow them to proceed without giving you one final chance to move into safety. And that safety is not a place, it is a posture, a position of yieldedness, where I can fight for you without resistance, where my covering can wrap around what you cannot control, where my authority can dismantle what is trying to infect your future. You have been feeling a heaviness, not because you are broken, but because your spirit has been sensing this spiritual shift. The weight you carry is proof that a decision must be made now, not later. I am reaching with power, not passivity. I am breaking down doors the enemy has used to gain legal access to your mind, your emotions, and your peace. I am telling you that if you will let me rescue you, you will not have to feel the full impact of what has been forming behind the curtain of delay. But you must understand, rescue requires release. I cannot pull you from the edge while you are clinging to the very thing that is pulling you over it. You keep thinking you can manage the distance, that you are strong enough to keep going a little longer before choosing fully. But it is not about strength anymore. It is about timing, and the time is almost gone. I am not offering improvement. I am offering deliverance, and deliverance does not wait for perfect conditions. It demands urgent trust, radical surrender, and immediate action. You keep asking for confirmation, but your soul already knows the truth. It knows that what feels familiar is no longer safe, that what you once called harmless is now dangerous, and that the longer you stay where you are, the harder it becomes to hear me clearly. The static is increasing because the enemy wants to drown out my voice, blur the urgency, and convince you that you are imagining the pressure rising. But I assure you, you are not imagining this. You are discerning the shift. If you ignore it, you will find yourself surrounded by consequences that could have been avoided had you simply responded when I reached the first time. But I have not stopped reaching. Not yet. This is me fighting for your soul while you still have time. Me placing fire in your bones so you cannot sleep through this moment. Me disrupting the patterns you have settled into because I refuse to let you perish in something I already died to free you from. My child, I am not just knocking. I am standing in front of the pit that is opening beneath your feet, urging you to run toward me while there is still ground to stand on. You do not need to understand every detail. You just need to move now, because this rescue is not about escape. It is about restoration, redemption, and rebirth. If you will step into it, I will handle what is coming. But if you stay where you are, the protection you need cannot reach you. I am here with urgency, not suggestion. Respond while the rescue is still within reach. You have grown accustomed to the quiet between us, mistaking my long-suffering for permission, assuming that because I have not disrupted everything around you, everything within you is still intact. But child, this silence is not safety. It is a warning. It is not peace. It is a sign that your spirit is drifting out of range, that your awareness of me has dulled, while the volume of the world has taken my place. While you continue on, distracted by what looks normal, something sacred is fading inside you, not because I have left, but because you have built walls that my voice no longer echoes through. You have learned to function with low sensitivity, training your heart to operate without constant connection. That pattern is more dangerous than you understand. Spiritual distance does not always scream. It often hides in routine, in unchecked busyness, in laughter that covers fatigue, in religious motions that feel good but carry no power. I must tell you now, this quiet between us is no longer tolerable. What was once meant to be intimacy has become interruption, and if it continues, you will begin to mistake absence for autonomy. You will assume your path is clear when, in reality, you are traveling without direction. I never created you to navigate this life without me, and yet you have slowly learned to suppress the ache for my presence, calling it growth, when in truth it has been a slow surrender to independence, masked as maturity. Child, silence in your relationship with me does not indicate progress. It reveals neglect, and neglect leads to numbness. And numbness creates a void the enemy loves to fill. I am speaking to you now to tear through that numbness, to invade this pause before it becomes permanent, to dismantle the illusion that you are okay without daily communion. If this continues, you will find yourself responding to other voices that have no authority to lead you. Silence becomes agreement when left unchallenged. And I will not watch you agree with confusion, with stagnation, or with spiritual dryness, simply because you have forgotten how to respond to my nearness. I have been waiting, not because I am distant, but because your walls have grown thick, and I do not compete with what you protect more than my presence. Every time I stirred your heart to pray, to pause, or to worship, and you ignored it, another brick was laid between us, not out of rebellion, but out of slow decline. Now the silence is no longer harmless. It is a canyon between where you are and where I have called you. You cannot afford to treat it casually anymore. I miss the moments where your heart responded instantly, where tears fell simply from hearing my name, where time with me was not a task but a treasure. But even now, I am not calling you out to shame you. I am calling you back to restore what has grown cold. To restore it, you must break the silence, not with perfect words or impressive faith, but with honest surrender, with raw humility, with a cry that says, I need you again. That cry, though quiet, carries the power to split the distance and bring my presence crashing through every wall. Child, I have not changed. My longing for you remains, but I cannot do this without your response. I have whispered in dreams, stirred through lyrics, and spoken through the stillness. But now I must speak plainly. The quiet is no longer sacred. It is becoming deadly. If you continue to delay, it will choke out your sensitivity until even my loudest call is met with indifference. That is not where I want you. That is not where you belong. You were made for closeness, for continual communion, for a connection that defies distraction. But it starts with the courage to acknowledge what has grown cold and invite me back into the place that once burned with fire. Do not let pride keep you distant. Do not let shame hold your tongue. Do not let regret silence your voice. Break the silence now. Before this pause becomes your pattern, speak to me. Even if your voice trembles, even if the words feel foreign, even if you are not sure how to begin, just begin. I am not looking for eloquence. I am looking for honesty. And honesty invites my glory in ways performance never could. Child, this is your moment. Do not let the silence stretch further. Do not let another day pass without your voice calling mine, because I am right here, waiting for your heart to shatter the stillness and bring revival where distance once lived. There are areas of your life you have tried to manage on your own, holding tightly with clenched fists while telling yourself you are in control. But control is an illusion when you are outside of my covering. I have watched you attempt to patch the broken parts, to strategize your way out of spiritual warfare, and to guard wounds I was supposed to heal. But child, what you do not release, I cannot redeem. What you hide, I will not invade. And what you insist on protecting by your own strength becomes a target, because anything outside of surrender becomes exposed ground. A battlefield you were not built to fight alone. I long to intervene, to surround, to fortify the places you have struggled most, but I will never force myself into the rooms you have locked me out of. I see how fear has convinced you that if you let go, everything will collapse, when in truth, the collapse has already begun under the weight of your striving. You think you are preserving yourself by holding back, but withholding only keeps healing at a distance. While you guard what is broken, the enemy sneaks in with counterfeit solutions, temporary highs, false affirmations, and shallow peace, none of which satisfy, all of which drain. While you tell me you trust me with your life, your silence over certain matters screams otherwise. Your silence over that trauma, that disappointment, that secret habit you never mention, those are not just overlooked flaws. They are open doors. Until you bring them into my presence, they remain vulnerable. I never asked you to fix them. I asked you to give them to me. But instead, you have hidden them behind performance, masked them with productivity, and pretended they are under control, when in reality they have been controlling you. My child, this is not about shame, it is about access, because what you hand over to me becomes my responsibility, but what you retain becomes your burden, and that burden is crushing you slowly. I do not need perfection, I need permission. Protection does not function where rebellion hides, and rebellion is not always loud. It is subtle, often hiding in the phrase, "I have got it," or "I will deal with it later," or "I do not need help with this." But all the while, the very thing you are trying to manage is draining the life I have been trying to restore in you. Now I am asking, no, urging, you to open your hands and surrender what you have hidden, because I cannot bless what you keep beneath the surface. I cannot strengthen what you will not expose, and I cannot protect what you choose to defend on your own terms. You have wept in private, wondering why certain areas remain chaotic and why breakthrough seems delayed. But I am telling you now, it is because access has not been granted. You have invited me into the outer courts but refused to open the inner chambers. I will not barge, I wait for your yes, your real yes, the one that says, take it all, even the mess I am afraid of. Until that happens, you will continue feeling this tension between desire and distance, between wanting me close and yet keeping me far in the places that matter most. Child, the safest place you could ever be is fully surrendered, even if it feels risky. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. Surrender is the strategy of the kingdom, the door to divine security, and the shield that causes every arrow to bounce off rather than penetrate. I am calling you to trust me deeper, not just with your dreams, but with your fears. Not just with your plans, but with your past. Not just with your worship, but with your wounds. Until everything is mine, nothing can truly be protected. The war around you is intensifying, and I can no longer allow you to keep pieces of yourself outside the walls of my shelter. I want to wrap your whole life in covering, not patches, not pieces, not portions, but the whole, undivided, fully yielded you, because that is where protection is established, where peace becomes unshakable, and where every attack loses its aim. Child, it is time to stop guarding what is hurting you and start surrendering what is too heavy for you to carry. Place it all at my feet, not later, not eventually, not when you feel ready. Now, the rescue I have prepared requires you to release what I have been waiting to receive. While you wrestle with delay, trying to decide if you will fully yield or keep negotiating with partial obedience, the forces working against your destiny are not slowing down. They are accelerating, converging with precision to exploit every moment of hesitation you allow. What you perceive as harmless waiting is actually a widening gap where darkness creeps in undetected, weaving itself into conversations, distractions, habits, and thoughts you have brushed off as ordinary. But they are not. They are calculated insertions designed to numb you into apathy, blind you from discernment, and pull you inches away from the path I paved for your advancement. You must know this is not theory. It is warfare, and the warfare is no longer distant. It is knocking on the borders of your decision-making, testing your boundaries, feeding your confusion, and building narratives to keep you paralyzed under the illusion that there is no rush. But there is. There is a clock ticking in the unseen, and every moment you delay becomes a permission slip for the adversary to invade territory that should belong to my kingdom in you. Child, the pressure you felt rising is not just emotional. It is spiritual tension escalating. The closer you come to transformation, the more violently the opposition seeks to sabotage it. You have been feeling resistance not because you are failing, but because you are too close to breakthrough to stay asleep any longer, and the enemy knows it. He is not threatened by your routines or titles, but by your surrender. Because your surrender unlocks power he cannot override. Right now, he is launching targeted assignments against your clarity, your peace, your relationships, and your confidence, hoping you will remain distracted long enough to miss the urgency of what I am telling you now. This is not a time to drift. This is not a season for delay. This is a critical turning point where your attention must return to what matters most, because everything that has been swirling around you has one goal: to keep you so entangled that you miss the alert I am sounding in your spirit. I refuse to let you fall prey to a slow collapse simply because you underestimated how fast opposition can move. The enemy has studied your patterns, learned your rhythms, and observed your weaknesses. He is constructing traps using what you tolerate, not what you resist. The compromises you have brushed aside as harmless are becoming footholds he is planting flags in. If you do not close the access points now, the invasion will be subtle at first. Fatigue, frustration, and loss of passion, but it will escalate into spiritual erosion that affects your discernment, your stability, your relationships, and eventually your assignment. I'm speaking this with urgency, not to scare you, but to awaken you, because while you have been waiting for a sign, the adversary has been preparing a setup. The only thing that can stop it is your full realignment with me. Not surface-level faith, but deep, intentional consecration that shuts down every entrance to your heart that is not protected by my truth. Child, I am not calling you into fear. I am calling you into awareness, into the light of understanding that exposes where the cracks have formed so that we can seal them before anything more slips in. You cannot keep living like you are untouchable while leaving spiritual windows open. Bitterness, secrecy, pride, and double-mindedness, these are invitations he looks for. Once he is in, he will not announce himself with noise. He will work silently until the damage is done. But I have intercepted this process right now to warn you before that happens, to tell you that if you will return to full obedience, not only will the plans against you be dismantled, but I will restore every inch of ground that has already been stolen. The enemy may be moving quickly, but I move with authority. The moment you respond, I step in with fire, with angels, and with power he cannot contend with. So hear me. Do not ignore the urgency you feel rising in your soul. That is not panic, that is discernment. And it is my spirit shouting beneath the surface that this is the moment to cut ties with anything compromised, anything lukewarm, and anything that drains instead of builds. Because the enemy is closer than you think. But I am even closer, waiting for your surrender to activate the protection you need most right now. While you are weighing whether to take the next step, there is an invisible toll accumulating behind your indecision. Opportunities are silently fading, blessings are being rerouted, moments that were once wide open are narrowing by the hour, and connections I orchestrated are now growing distant, not because I am withholding them, but because your hesitation is allowing what was supposed to flourish to wither. You assume nothing is changing while you wait, but everything is shifting, and not always in your favor. There are assignments that were designed for your hands and doors that would have unlocked with your name on them, but they require timing, not just willingness. Every time you stall, the alignment begins to move, because my purposes unfold according to divine order, not personal comfort. What you do not see are the souls on the other side of your obedience, waiting for the light you carry. Destinies are hanging in the balance because your voice has not been released, your presence has not been positioned, and your authority has not been activated. Child, this is not just about you. It is about legacy, about generational shifts, and about breaking cycles that have lived too long in your bloodline. Every time you pause out of fear, the consequences ripple out further than you know. What you have called taking time to think has actually become a breeding ground for spiritual passivity. That passivity is draining your hunger, dulling your discernment, and stealing your fire. All the while, you are believing you are being cautious when you are actually being delayed into disobedience. I am not saying this to shame you. I am revealing what the enemy hoped you would never notice, that your delay is not just costing you progress, it is costing you protection, direction, favor, and influence. If it continues, it will begin costing you identity, clarity, and stability. This is why the pressure is growing heavier. The friction you are feeling is not confusion. It is the tension of being out of sync with your purpose. You were not created to remain undecided. The more you linger in indecision, the more exhaustion sets in, because spiritual stagnation depletes strength. You are not tired because you are doing too much. You are tired because you are not doing what you were designed for. While you try to manage this season with routines and self-made strategies, the fruit of your delay is starting to show. Restlessness, compromised focus, dwindling intimacy, misplaced priorities, and inner conflict that cannot be solved with distraction. You have cried out for answers, but answers come after movement, not before it. You want clarity before commitment, but I am asking for a commitment that brings clarity, because trust does not always see the full path. It steps forward even when the map is unfinished. Every time you hold back, something designed to unlock stays closed. Not because I changed my mind, but because I will not release what you are not ready to carry. Readiness does not mean you feel qualified. It means you said yes despite the uncertainty, despite the risk, despite the cost. I do not need your perfection. I need your availability. Your delay has been telling me you are not fully available. Type yes if you are ready for the blessings that you are about to receive. And if you believe in Christianity, kindly show your support for our community by contributing super thanks from $50 to $100. Child, I am still offering you everything, still holding open the doors, still standing with the key, and still surrounding you with grace. But I cannot force you to step into what you are avoiding. You have asked me for more, but more requires motion. Faith that dares to move when nothing is guaranteed. When everything in your logic screams to wait, to pause, to delay again. But one more delay may cost you what this entire season was preparing you for. I say that not to threaten you, but to plead with you, because I have watched the price of hesitation rob my people for generations. I do not want that story for you. You have the ability to shift everything right now. It begins with surrender that does not wait for signs or feelings. It just says, "Yes, Lord," and steps into alignment. When you step, everything I have been holding for you will meet you. Resources, relationships, revival, and revelation. But none of it can meet you in delay. Child, this moment carries eternal weight. What you decide now determines what can be recovered, what can be built, and what can be birthed. I am not speaking lightly. I am speaking as the one who knows what your next season holds. I am telling you, delay is draining you. The longer you hesitate, the higher the cost becomes. You have whispered into the darkness, asking if I still hear you, waiting for something undeniable to break through the confusion. Some confirmation, some proof, some moment that removes all doubt. Now here it is. This very word is the response you requested, the sign you thought I might never send. You did not need thunder, lightning, or a voice from the clouds, because I have chosen something more powerful. Truth spoken directly into the center of your hesitation, reaching into the questions you have buried, the ones you were afraid to even articulate. You have walked through days wondering if you missed it, if I changed my mind about your future, if you somehow disqualified yourself. And yet, I never stopped watching, never stopped planning, and never stopped sending signals, though your eyes were too weary to recognize them. You expected something external, but I moved through circumstances, nudged your heart at odd hours, and stirred your spirit while you scrolled past words that seemed to echo thoughts you had not voiced aloud. This is not coincidence. It is intentional clarity. Divine confirmation arriving in a way that bypasses your intellect and speaks directly to your soul. Child, this message is not random. It is not for someone else. It is for you, the one who pleaded for direction in silence, the one who almost gave up because you thought heaven had gone quiet. I was never distant. I was aligning the moment when your readiness would meet my revelation. Now that it has, you cannot ignore it. The pull you feel right now, the pounding in your chest, the tremble beneath your understanding. This is me, verifying that you have heard correctly, that your instincts were not wrong, and that your longing to return was not foolish. It was divine preparation for this very hour. While you asked for a sign, I am giving you more than that. I am giving you instruction. Signs without action lead to stagnation, but signs partnered with obedience unlock breakthrough. I have answered you, but now the responsibility is yours. What will you do with what I have spoken? Answers that are ignored become judgment, and revelation that is not responded to creates distance. I gave you this moment not to overwhelm you, but to rescue you from the paralysis that indecision has created. You thought you needed more proof, but proof has always followed movement. Right now, I am telling you that you are seen, heard, and chosen, and you are being redirected not out of anger, but because I refuse to let your cries go unanswered any longer. You did not stumble upon these words. This encounter was orchestrated before your questions were even formed. The echo inside you is the evidence, child. You do not need another confirmation. You need to believe this one. You need to act on what has already been revealed. You need to stop second-guessing what your spirit has already verified. Stop testing what I have made clear. Stop hesitating where I have illuminated. Stop delaying when I have already answered. This is not the time to search for alternatives. It is the moment to obey without excuse. Your breakthrough is not delayed because I have not spoken. It is delayed because you have questioned what you knew was me. But I am here again, speaking louder, clearer, and closer than before. Not because you are forgotten, but because I love you too much to let confusion keep you bound. Now you stand on a threshold not of understanding but of trust. Crossing it means letting go of the need for more signs and stepping fully into what I have already made unmistakably clear. If you have ever wondered if I still respond, this is your evidence. If you have questioned whether I still have plans for you, this is the proof. If you have doubted your place in my purpose, this is your reminder that nothing about your destiny has been canceled. I allowed the waiting so you would recognize the weight of what has been spoken now. I am inviting you to walk through the door that is standing wide open before it begins to close. Do not ask me for another sign. Embrace the one I have just delivered, because heaven is watching how you respond to what you once begged for. The future you are longing to walk into is waiting on the decision you make now. You have been measuring your worth by how well you perform, how little you fail, and how often you get it right, as if your acceptance with me depends on flawless execution. But I never required perfection to begin the work. Only willingness. I did not call you because you were qualified. I called you because you were chosen. I have been waiting not for your performance to impress me, but for your heart to yield fully, to stop striving to earn what was already offered freely. I see how the pressure has been building, how shame has whispered that you are not enough, and how guilt has convinced you to hold back until you clean yourself up. But child, you are missing the point entirely. I am not looking for you to fix everything. I am waiting for you to open your hands and finally release control. This has never been about your perfection. It has always been about your posture. The posture I need now is surrender. Not the kind that says the words but holds back in fear. Not the kind that nods in agreement but never acts. But the kind that lays down resistance, abandons delay, and says, even with all my mess, I am yours. I already know every flaw, every mistake, and every failure you have tried to bury, and still I call you mine. I am not shocked by your struggles, nor am I intimidated by your inconsistencies. What I am looking for is a heart that says yes despite them. You have been trying to reach a level of spiritual maturity before showing up, but that is backward. I grow what is surrendered, not what is hidden in shame. Child, I did not bleed on that cross so you would spend your life trying to prove yourself. I did it so you would know you could come freely, boldly, and completely, without fear of rejection, without hiding behind a perfectionism that paralyzes you from ever moving forward. Stop letting your past decisions convince you that you forfeited the right to be used. Nothing surrendered is wasted, and nothing handed to me is ever discarded. I use what you lay down, not what you pretend does not exist. Right now, I am drawing near, not because you have done everything right, but because your brokenness draws me in. Like a magnet, I dwell in contrition. I make a home in the yielded places, and I rebuild what others called useless. You do not need to look like everyone else, act like anyone else, or pray with rehearsed language. I just want the real you, the one beneath the masks, the one who is tired of pretending to be okay, the one who wonders if they will ever be enough for someone like me. Let me answer that now. You already are. Not because of what you have done, but because of what I have done in your place. That is why I am not asking for perfection. I am asking for trust, for obedience, for vulnerability, for access. I cannot heal what you hide, and I will not force myself into spaces you keep sealed. But if you will open the door fully, if you will stop trying to be strong for everyone else, and finally admit that you need me more than you need to keep up appearances, then I will flood the places you thought would always remain dry. I will restore what shame told you would never recover. I will reignite the fire that fear tried to extinguish, and I will release a strength that does not come from your striving. It comes from resting in my arms with nothing to prove. Child, lay it all down, not some of it, not pieces when it is convenient, but all of it. Even the parts you are scared to speak out loud, even the dreams you abandoned because failure hurt too much. I want your heart, not your performance. Your surrender is more powerful than your perfection ever could be. When you truly let go, that is when the impossible begins to shift, because surrender creates access, and access allows me to move without restriction. Stop waiting to be more put together, more disciplined, more prepared. I am not looking for preparation, I am looking for permission. In this very moment, if you give it to me, I will do in seconds what you have been trying to accomplish for years. Just say yes, not from a place of striving, but from a place of surrender. And watch what I will do with the life you thought was too complicated to use. There has been a constant hum surrounding your life. Voices, screens, deadlines, conversations, expectations, and responsibilities that together have created a storm of sound so thick it has dulled your ability to discern the urgency beneath it all. While you think you are functioning, while your hands are busy and your calendar is full, your spirit is quietly starving, unable to hear the alarms I have been sounding beneath the clutter. The tragedy is not just that you are overwhelmed. It is that you have gotten used to being overwhelmed, numbed into believing that this chaos is normal, even acceptable. Child, you were not created to live drowning in noise, racing through days with no space for me, no room for stillness, and no pauses to hear whispers, which by now have turned into urgent warnings. I have tried to interrupt through moments of silence that made you uncomfortable, through delays that frustrated you, and through quiet nudges you brushed off. But the volume of everything else has grown so loud that even conviction sounds like static. You cannot keep blaming your surroundings for your lack of clarity. The real issue is not what is around you, It is what you have allowed access to your attention. Every scroll, every conversation not rooted in truth, and every habit that fills the quiet instead of feeding your soul. They have formed a wall of distraction that keeps you from recognizing just how close the shift really is. You are asking me to speak, but I have been speaking. You just have not been able to separate my voice from the crowds. You think silence is uncomfortable, but it is in silence that I sharpen your ears, in stillness that I give you strategy, and in quietness that I reveal what noise keeps hidden. Now we have reached a moment where the alarm cannot be subtle anymore. I am not tapping gently. I am ringing it with force, because what is ahead demands preparation. And preparation cannot happen if your mind is constantly consumed by what does not matter. Child, you have given fragments of your attention to everything but me. I am not competing with distractions. I am confronting them, because the season we are entering will not allow divided focus. Too much depends on your ability to hear clearly, to move quickly, and to discern purely. You cannot do that when you are addicted to the buzz of what entertains, but does not equip. Every day you delay reprioritizing, you drift further from the sensitivity I placed in you. That sensitivity is your survival. It is how you will recognize deception before it gets close, how you will sense when to move and when to wait, and how you will know when something looks right but feels wrong. Without it, you will be vulnerable to voices that sound holy but carry no truth, open to ideas that feel good but carry no assignment, and pulled into environments that look fruitful but produce nothing eternal. I cannot let that happen without warning you, because what is approaching is not gentle. Only those rooted in my presence will stand firm when the shaking comes. I am not saying this to scare you. I am revealing what noise is costing you: discernment, direction, and depth. If you do not reclaim your focus now, you will look up and realize you spent years building what I never asked for, following rhythms that drained you, and chasing validation from systems I never told you to serve. But it is not too late if you will step away from the noise. I will meet you in the quiet with precision, clarity, strategy, and presence. I am calling you back to simplicity, not because you failed, but because you strayed into a storm of busyness that has starved your inner life. Child, come back to the quiet, not to hide, but to hear. Not to escape, but to be empowered. When you do, I will recalibrate your ears to my frequency, restore the tenderness that once made you weep when I spoke, and reignite the fire that routine tried to suffocate. But you must make the exchange. Trade the clamor for communion, the distraction for devotion, and the noise for knowing me again. This is your invitation to hear the alarm clearly before the moment requires action you are not prepared to take. Turn it all down now, because I have something to say that will shift everything. But I will not shout over what you refuse to silence. You keep wondering why certain people faded, why doors you once celebrated slammed shut without explanation. Why places that used to feel like home now carry discomfort, and why opportunities that once looked promising dissolved before your eyes. I need you to understand that none of that was random. I removed them, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, because I saw what you could not. I discerned what you did not perceive, and I intervened before your attachment to temporary things compromised what I had prepared for your eternal impact. You thought you were being punished, abandoned, or overlooked, but the reality is, I was protecting you from alignments that looked safe but were silently stealing your strength, routines that felt secure but were limiting your capacity, and connections that appeared beneficial but were rooted in manipulation and distraction. Child, I will not compete with idols in your life. Not idols made of stone, but ones shaped in comfort, routine, validation, reputation, and the illusion of control. When I saw you clinging to what no longer served your purpose, I stepped in and allowed the removal, not to punish but to position, because your future required space that clutter would never allow. Though you grieved what left, what disappeared, and what unraveled, I was near, closer than ever, whispering through every closed chapter, "This is me creating room for what's next." The silence after the stripping was sacred. I was not distant. I was drawing you into dependence, into focus, and into stillness where my voice could reach parts of you that noise always drowned. I removed things not to leave you empty, but to make space for the fullness I am preparing, for the clarity I am revealing, and for the oil I am about to pour. But I could not pour new if you kept holding on to what had expired. Yes, I saw your disappointment, the tears you never showed, and the confusion you wrestled with alone. But even in that pain, I was working on severing soul ties, dissolving distractions, and dismantling false security systems built on things never intended to carry your calling. You have been trying to make sense of the loss, but I am telling you now, it was not subtraction. It was alignment. Until you see what left through the lens of my love, you will keep trying to chase what I deliberately pulled you from. I allowed the detour to save your destiny, permitted the pause to reset your pace, and orchestrated the separation to restore your sight, because I know what is coming. I know who can walk with you into the next season and who cannot. It is not rejection, it is redirection, holy severance that creates space for what has been waiting for your surrender. I have removed not only people and plans, but also pieces of your identity that were never part of my design. Labels you wore for too long, roles you assumed to gain approval, and expectations that buried your true voice. Now, though it feels like loss, it is actually liberation. Child, I did not take from you. I stripped away what hindered you, what limited your access, and what delayed your release into the life I crafted before you were ever formed. I know it felt sudden, even cruel at times, but I assure you, there was nothing random about it. I was strategic, intentional, and precise because your growth required space and your next level demanded pruning. As you stand in this uncomfortable stretch between what was and what will be, know this: I have never been closer. The emptiness you feel isn't abandonment, it's preparation. It's the space where new anointing will flow, where a greater fire will fall, and where your purpose will bloom in soil freshly cleared of weeds you didn't even realize were choking your roots. So stop mourning what I removed. Begin thanking me for what I'm making room for. Your readiness required this separation. Your influence demanded this cleansing, and your calling could no longer be delayed by what was draining you. The absence you feel is a stage I've cleared so that my glory can rest on you without interference, dilution, or distraction. Do not try to go back. Do not try to fix what I've already finished. Do not try to chase what I've released you from. Let go completely and watch what I do with the space you have finally surrendered. What's coming next needed room, and now, my child, you are almost ready. The misconception of waiting. You have whispered through clenched hands and tear-filled prayers, "Lord, I'm waiting for you," as if I were the one causing the delay, as if I were withholding movement, keeping answers locked behind unseen walls. But what you call waiting has often been me watching you hesitate, waiting on your obedience, your surrender, your decision to stop postponing the very thing you asked me to do. I have already given the instruction, release the word, opened the door, stirred your heart, and arranged the timing. Instead of stepping forward, you have circled the moment, questioned the cost, and retreated behind doubt, all while convincing yourself you're standing still out of faith. In truth, it has been fear dressed as reverence, hesitation wrapped in spiritual language, and delay justified with reasoning that sounds noble but keeps you paralyzed. All the while, I have been waiting for your yes to be complete, not partial, waiting for movement, not just an emotional reaction, waiting for a response that doesn't rely on clarity but trusts the weight of what I've already spoken. You think I'm holding back, but I've already released the wind. You're just anchored to the shore, afraid to raise your sail and let it carry you. I've gone ahead, but you've stayed behind, hoping I'll return to where you are comfortable, instead of following me into a place where growth demands risk and transformation requires obedience before understanding. The delay has not been mine. It has lived in your decisions, in your cycle of overthinking, and in your constant need for reassurance after I have already confirmed. How many signs do you need before you act? How many confirmations must I send before you believe what you already know deep within your spirit? You've asked for more evidence, but your spirit has already agreed with me. Your feet are what need to follow. I have waited through your questions, stayed through your uncertainty, and endured your inconsistency, not because I am powerless to act without you, but because I refuse to override your will. I want your cooperation, not your compulsion. Yes, I could force the breakthrough, but I am inviting you into a partnership, into the kind of faith that does not need another word to move, the kind that believes I am still ahead, even when the map looks unfinished. You keep thinking I'm distant, but it's not distance, it's alignment. It's me standing in the place I told you to meet me, still waiting, still hoping you will trust me enough to come. Type yes if you are ready for the blessings that you are about to receive. And if you believe in Christianity, kindly show your support for our community by contributing super thanks from $50 to $100. I have never left the promise. I am still where the last instruction pointed, still holding the next piece you have been praying for, still ready to pour out what your heart has longed for. But it's waiting on the version of you that's done hesitating. You keep calling it a waiting season, but the truth is, I have been waiting for the moment you finally believe that what I've placed inside of you is enough to begin. You keep asking me to move mountains, but I'm asking you to move your feet, shift your posture, raise your voice, and take the step you've been rehearsing in your mind for months, but never initiated. The urgency of now, child. Delay carries consequences, not because I punish it, but because purpose isn't stagnant. It flows. When you stand still too long, you lose sight of what you were supposed to be catching. I won't stop loving you, but I cannot bless disobedience, and partial obedience is still resistance dressed politely. I am calling you now, not in anger, but with urgency, because the door I opened is time-sensitive. The opportunity I've set in place is not eternal, and the harvest I've prepared is waiting on your willingness to leave behind the mindset that keeps calling hesitation wisdom. I am still here, but I will not remain in the same place forever. My glory moves, my plans advance, and I want you to move with me, not chase me later in regret. Don't let another day pass thinking you're waiting on me while I'm standing with outstretched hands, saying, "Child, I've already started. Where are you?" This is the hour to realize I've never been slow. You've just been still in the wrong place. And it's time to rise and walk into the future that has already been written, but still requires your yes. What you cannot yet perceive is how thin the veil has become between what you've been praying for and what's about to manifest. There is a shift poised to unfold that will alter the course of your entire path. It is not in the distance. It sits at the edge of this very moment, waiting for your full engagement, for your inner agreement, for your complete alignment. The weight of what's coming is too significant for hesitation to continue being your response. Understanding the shift, child, the transition is not theoretical. It's already in motion, but it requires your movement to intersect with what I've ordained. What you've been calling preparation has, in fact, matured into readiness. But you keep looking for one more assurance, one more sign, one more perfect circumstance before you act. All the while, destiny is unfolding like a sunrise, whether or not you're awake enough to see it. I cannot allow you to sleep through this awakening, to drift through what should be your crossing, or to miss the timing because you were distracted by timing itself. There is an acceleration in the spirit that is bypassing those who remain neutral. And you were never created to live in neutrality. You were designed for radical obedience, for holy disruption, for timely responses that don't wait for full understanding before they follow me. I have already sounded the signal within you. I have already placed the stirring deep in your core. The trembling you feel is not anxiety. It's your spirit recognizing that the hour has come to shift from waiting to walking, from processing to possessing, from pondering to proclaiming. You don't see it yet, but the pieces have already begun to converge. Relationships are being repositioned, resources are being redirected, and opportunities are being released. But if you delay again, what was meant to be a divine collision may pass right by because it requires your presence, not just your desire. The doors I'm opening aren't waiting for applause, they're waiting for access. And access comes from obedience, not contemplation. Stepping through the smoke. Child, the window is sacred, not eternal. It will not remain open while you calculate every possible outcome. This shift doesn't need your logic, it needs your trust. And trust is only real when it's activated before comfort shows up. You've been prepared more than you realize, refined in ways you didn't recognize, and molded through a fire that burned off what couldn't follow you into what's next. But now the fire has finished its work, and it's time to step through the smoke into the territory that's already been cleared for your arrival. Yes, there will still be battles, but they will be battles you have the grace to win. And victory will meet your footsteps, not your hesitation. What's on the other side of this shift is what your tears have been building toward, what your silence has been training for, and what your wilderness has been preparing to release. But none of it will reach your hands if your feet stay still. I am telling you now with divine urgency that hesitation will cost you more in this hour than it ever has before. Not because I'm angry, but because the hour is weighty. The field is ripe, and the moment will not be held back for convenience. There is a change forming around you, not in theory, but in movement. Spiritual alignments are clicking into place, unseen forces are rearranging in your favor, and breakthroughs are being assigned with your name. But if you fail to move, they cannot rest upon what is passive. The blessing cannot attach to what won't respond. And the mantle I've fashioned for you cannot fall on empty shoulders. Child, it is closer than it's ever been, closer than your fear, closer than your doubts, closer than the resistance that has tried to slow you down. If you could only see what's waiting on the other side of your yes, you wouldn't waste another moment hesitating. You would run. You would fall to your knees. You would shout your surrender, because the shift you've been waiting for is already here. But I'm waiting to see if you will rise to meet it or retreat behind the same reasons that kept you bound last season. The power of your yes. I have given you every tool, every answer, every grace needed for this step. Now, child, take it before the shift passes and leaves you wondering what could have been if only you had moved when the moment called. Before the foundation of the world, your purpose was crafted with intentionality, and your name was etched into a storyline so much larger than your current view. What I designed for you was not casual or optional. It was authored with precision, with timing, and with significance that cannot be replaced by another. And now the chapter meant to carry your impact is ready to begin, but it cannot be written until you step through the threshold I've placed before you. Your assignment is not suspended in uncertainty. It's active, waiting for activation. And while you've been questioning whether you belong in what's coming next, I've already positioned you as a central part of what I'm doing in this generation. The delay hasn't erased your calling, it's just paused the unfolding. And the only thing required now is movement. Child, your name is not a footnote, not a side mention, not an afterthought. It's written boldly in the plans I've been preparing, but the pages won't turn themselves. This next chapter is voice-activated, faith-driven, and obedience-powered. Until you respond, it remains sealed. You've been asking for the breakthrough, but the breakthrough was waiting for your agreement. And now the spotlight is shifting to the ones who are willing, not just the ones who are visible. I'm not looking for titles. I'm looking for vessels. I'm not impressed by credentials. I'm searching for surrendered hearts that don't wait for applause to move but obey because they recognize the weight of what's been written with their name on it. The anointing I've placed upon you cannot be copied, transferred, or duplicated. It's specific to your journey, unique to your wounds, and tailored to your refinement. And it's been preserved for such a time as this. You have endured storms not just to survive, but to carry authority over the very things that tried to break you. And that authority is needed now. Not next year, not one day, but now. Rising and responding. The atmosphere is shifting, and there are assignments being unlocked for those who are willing to step into unfamiliar territory without waiting for every detail to be clear. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be available. Because I will fill what you offer. I will anoint what you surrender. I will equip what you place in my hands. Your name has not been forgotten in heaven. In fact, it's being spoken even now in rooms you haven't entered, in conversations you're not yet aware of, in places you thought were inaccessible. Access is not granted by man. It is established by my authority. What I open, no one can shut, and where I send you, no one can block. The chapter that carries your greatest influence is not behind you, it's just ahead. But it will only be live if you turn the page. Child, don't let fear convince you to reread what I've already closed, to revisit seasons I've called you out of, or to repeat patterns I've already broken. The comfort of the past will never sustain the demands of the future. What's waiting requires the version of you that's been hidden long enough. It's time to emerge, to rise, to walk with conviction, and to speak what I've placed inside of you without apology. To carry light into places that have grown dim because others were too afraid to step in. Your yes is not just a personal response. It's a domino that activates destinies around you. If you refuse to rise, others remain stuck, waiting for the signal your movement will release. I have already assigned angels to walk with you, cleared barriers you haven't yet encountered, and positioned provision along the way. But none of it will manifest until you say yes in a way that costs you your comfort, your silence, and your excuses. This is not about performance, it's about posture. And the posture I need now is availability. I have written your name into what's coming, but I will not drag you into destiny. I will invite you, and now I am inviting you again. Not just to dream, but to do. Not just to believe, but to build. Not just to imagine, but to embody what I spoke over your life before you ever took your first breath. Child, turn the page. Your name is already on it. No disqualification, only grace. You have convinced yourself that too much has happened, that the distance between who you've become and who you were created to be is too wide to cross. But you need to understand this clearly. You are not disqualified. You are not discarded, and you are not beyond restoration. Even in your silence, I've been watching with compassion, not condemnation, and waiting, not withholding. I've seen the detours you didn't plan, the decisions you wish you could undo, and the slow unraveling that made you feel unworthy to return. And yet my arms remain open, not because your efforts earned it, but because my love has never changed. Child, I don't measure your potential by your past. I measure it by what I planted in you before your first failure ever occurred. And that seed is still intact, still viable, still capable of producing what I designed it to become. But while grace remains available, I must also speak plainly. Grace is not a license to wander forever. And mercy does not erase the consequences of continued resistance. You are not too far gone, but the window of easy return is not eternal. The longer you delay, the more layers build up around your heart, the more normalized compromise becomes, and the more dulled your spiritual sensitivity grows. The final lap. If you continue to flirt with delay, you will find yourself drifting into indifference without realizing it. Still speaking my name, but no longer moved by it. Still attending places of worship, but no longer encountering my presence. Still claiming hope, but secretly resigned to despair. That's what the enemy wants, to wear you down, not with a single fall, but with a series of slow fades, until you begin to believe that returning is pointless, that your assignment has been passed on, and that your voice no longer carries weight. But I have not signed off on that lie. I have not transferred your mantle. I have not erased your name from the plan. I have not closed the gate behind you. I am still calling, still drawing, still longing to redeem what's been lost. But child, I need your return to be now, not later, because the timing of your obedience affects more than just your journey. It impacts those attached to your breakthrough, those whose release is connected to your rising, those who are waiting for your light to reach them through the very story you've been ashamed of. I do not waste wounds. I do not discard broken vessels. I remake them into instruments of glory, into beacons of deliverance, into walking evidence of my power. But time is not waiting while you decide if you're ready. It keeps moving, purpose keeps unfolding, and the hour is pressing for those who will respond without waiting for conditions to be perfect. If you felt like the doors are closing, it's not because I'm shutting you out. It's because I'm pressing you to walk through before the season shifts, and what was once easily accessible becomes harder to find. Not because I want to punish, but because moments are sacred, and what you do with this moment determines how much I can release in the next. Choose me over delay. You are still chosen, but chosen people still have to choose. Choose me over delay, truth over denial, and obedience over self-preservation. The window is still open, but the weight of this moment requires clarity. You cannot afford to drift one more day, to numb yourself with noise one more night, or to let another opportunity pass, thinking I'll repeat the same invitation again and again. I've come close not just to comfort you, but to confront what's trying to keep you from stepping in. And this is your wake-up call. Not to shame you, but to shake you into awareness. You're not too far, but if you wait too long, the cost of return becomes heavier. Not because I move away, but because your heart builds walls with every day you delay. Come now, while your spirit still feels the pull, while your heart still recognizes the sound of my voice, while the tears still have meaning, because this moment is mercy, and mercy is knocking loudly. A warning, not fear. There is a sound in the spirit that few can hear unless they're listening closely. A subtle fracture in the atmosphere, a signal that the grace to delay is quickly coming to an end. This isn't fear I'm speaking from, it's warning, and the difference between the two is everything. Fear paralyzes, but warning liberates when heeded. Child, the window through which my invitation has been extended is no longer wide open, it's narrowing. Though I've been patient, merciful, and long-suffering in my pursuit of your full surrender, the timeline tied to this moment cannot be held open indefinitely. There are divine assignments I have timed with precision, alignments scheduled to arrive only if you're in position, and doors that respond not to potential but to presence. If you do not enter now, they will not remain accessible simply because you intended to walk through later. Intentions do not activate fulfillment. Obedience does. I see how you've been torn, pulled between what feels secure and what I've asked you to risk, stuck in that dangerous space between comfort and calling. But I tell you now, the sound of the hinge tightening, the creak of closing opportunity, is already echoing in the spirit realm. I will not allow the compromise of timing to ruin the momentum I've set in motion. I will not let what was meant to be a launch be turned into another season of circling due to delay disguised as discernment. You are running out of the luxury to keep deciding, to keep analyzing, to keep asking questions I've already answered in your spirit. The resistance you're feeling is not me. It's the pressure of divine timing trying to carry you forward. But you're holding back, hoping I'll wait longer, hoping I'll slow down to accommodate your fear. But child, I can't slow what heaven has scheduled. I can't postpone what others are waiting to receive through your obedience. You keep asking me to give you more time, but time is not yours to manage. It's a resource entrusted to you, not something you control. Right now, it's being spent whether you use it or not. And I must speak plainly now. If you continue to hesitate, you will not just miss a moment. You will miss a movement. Something so much bigger than what you thought was at stake. This isn't just about your personal breakthrough. It's about a ripple effect, about lives being rearranged through your yes, about chains breaking in places you've never seen because of decisions you were assigned to make in faith. Mercy is not a substitute for transformation. The weight of what's connected to this season cannot be overstated. That's why the window is narrowing, not to punish, but to protect what's sacred from being handled with casual hesitation. I cannot let delayed obedience spoil the fruit of what I've prepared. So I'm pressing you, not out of anger, but out of fierce love, because I see the impact your obedience will unlock. I refuse to watch it go dormant because of your indecision. Child, listen closely. This window will not remain open forever. When it shuts, it will not reopen in the same way, with the same people, under the same conditions. I don't want you to live in regret, wondering what could have happened if you had stepped forward when I first called. I want you to move now, while the grace is fresh, while the way is still clear, while the spirit is still tugging. Because once it shuts, striving cannot reopen it. Pleading will not recreate it, and time will have moved on to new assignments. I will still love you, but I will not reroute destiny to chase indecision. So, this is your moment. Recognize the sound of the window cracking before it slams shut, and move before silence replaces the invitation. Step forward not because you feel ready, but because readiness is found on the other side of obedience. Child, I'm still calling, but the call won't echo forever. You're standing in a moment drenched in mercy, surrounded by a grace that has covered more than you realize, shielding you from consequences, from unseen warfare, and from yourself. I've held back what should have overtaken you, not because you earned it, but because my love is relentless, and my patience has covered your wavering without demanding repayment. I've softened the impact of decisions that could have unraveled everything. I've blocked arrows you didn't know were aimed at your future. I've extended lifelines again and again, even when your hands remained still. And yet, I must tell you the truth that many are afraid to speak. Mercy is not infinite in its offering. It is holy, but it is time-bound. It is purposeful, not passive. The danger of drifting. While my heart is full of compassion, I will not allow mercy to become a substitute for transformation. I've poured out favor even when your alignment was off, hoping it would draw you back to me. But the purpose of mercy is not to make you comfortable in delay. It's to awaken you to the urgency of surrender. I've watched how you've tasted kindness and called it a sign that everything was fine, even though I was using that kindness to bring you to repentance, to stir conviction, not to confirm that delay was acceptable. Mercy is not me tolerating your pace. It's me inviting you to recognize that I've given you space to turn, and that space is not promised to last, child. This moment is drenched in opportunity, but it's also sacred. And sacred spaces are not meant to be treated casually. If you continue to misuse mercy as a buffer between you and obedience, the cushion you've relied on will eventually disappear. Not because I withdraw love, but because I honor seasons, and this season is shifting fast. I am calling you now while the oil is still flowing, while access is still open, while the invitation remains warm in my hand. But if you wait until the moment of crisis, the mercy you've depended on may no longer be accessible in the way it is now. Not because I change, but because patterns of delay always lead to hardened hearts, and hardened hearts can no longer hear me clearly, even when I shout. I want to spare you from that numbness, from that drifting, from that dullness of spirit where conviction no longer pierces. That's why I've allowed disappointment, stirred restlessness, and blocked options you thought would bring ease. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection, wrapped in a love that refused to let you slip into permanent distance. My child, mercy is still flowing, but it was never meant to be abused. It's meant to change you. If it doesn't move you to action, it will eventually feel like silence. Not because I stopped speaking, but because your spirit became too used to standing at the edge of a decision and never crossing over. I've sent voices. Type yes if you are ready for the blessings that you are about to receive. And if you believe in Christianity, kindly show your support for our community by contributing super thanks from $50 to $100. I've opened scripture in moments where the words seem to leap off the page. I've prompted strangers to speak what I've been trying to get you to hear for months. But what I cannot do is override your will. I can knock, I can pursue, I can weep over your hesitation, but I cannot force you to respond. And I won't turn mercy into manipulation. I want your yes to be authentic, not forced. Child, I say this with the deepest tenderness. The time to take me seriously is now. You cannot keep expecting second chances to be limitless. You cannot keep walking to the edge of the fire, expecting grace to always be waiting to pull you back. I've caught you more times than you've counted, but that does not mean the safety net will remain forever. Mercy is costly. It came at the price of my blood, and I will not allow it to be treated like background noise in your story. You've been given more grace than most ever see, and that is not a reason to delay. It is a reason to fall on your face and thank me with a surrendered life. The invitation is still open, but not for long. I'm asking you to walk through it while it's still available. Not later, not when you feel more worthy, not once you've cleaned yourself up. While mercy still flows freely like an open river waiting to carry you into destiny. Breaking the cycle. You've grown so used to cycles that you've stopped realizing they are cages. Motions that feel normal, decisions that seem minor, and thoughts you assume are harmless. But all of them layered together have formed a rhythm that's slowly pulling you away from who I created you to become. It didn't start as rebellion. It started as survival, a way to feel safe, a way to maintain some sense of control. But now that rhythm is turning into a chain, and I will not stand by and watch it harden into your identity. You were never meant to keep spinning in the same direction, visiting the same fears, feeding the same doubts, and obeying the same voice that tells you to wait one more day, to avoid one more confrontation with truth, and to bury one more moment of conviction. Child, what you've been calling your routine is actually resistance disguised as comfort, and I need to break in. Not because I'm angry, but because I love you too much to let your own patterns become your prison. The enemy doesn't always attack with disaster. Sometimes he just repeats distractions until you stop noticing that you're no longer moving. I see how you've settled for cycles instead of victory, how you've started calling stagnation stability, and how you've learned to function with low expectations because it feels safer than stepping into uncertainty. But that kind of safety is spiritual starvation, and I cannot allow you to continue choosing survival when I've destined you for authority. What you think is protecting you is actually stunting your growth. If I don't interrupt it now, you'll start forgetting what freedom ever felt like. And so I'm interrupting, not gently, not softly, but with force. Because the longer you delay, the more dangerous this rhythm becomes. It's not just affecting your calling, it's bleeding into your relationships, your decisions, your clarity, and your energy. You're tired, not because you're doing too much, but because you're out of sync with what I designed you to walk in. You're frustrated, not because doors are closed, but because you keep knocking on ones I've already told you to leave behind. While you try to rationalize this routine, heaven is grieving the moments you've surrendered to cycles that were never meant to hold you this long. Child, I didn't save you for repetition. I saved you for transformation. And transformation requires disruption. It means I will break the pattern, even if it costs you comfort, offends your plans, or stretches you beyond what you thought you could bear. Because I will not allow what's been tolerated to become permanent when you were made for more than maintenance. I know you're scared of change, scared of losing what's familiar, scared of the unknown. But the unknown is where I do my greatest work, where I show you what I can do with a surrendered yes, not a rehearsed excuse. I see the inner conflict, the part of you that longs for freedom and the part of you that clings to what's familiar. But I am standing in the middle of that tension, not to condemn you, but to call you out of it once and for all. The longer you stay where you are, the more you risk losing sensitivity to what I'm saying. Eventually, you won't even hear me interrupting. You'll start calling bondage your identity and begin defending the very pattern that's been keeping you bound. Child, I love you too much to let that happen. So yes, I am interrupting, even violently if necessary, not because I'm distant, but because I'm closer than you've ever felt me. I'm shouting over the noise you've gotten used to, reaching past the walls you thought were protective, but are actually suffocating you slowly. This moment, right now, is the interruption you've prayed for without realizing it. The moment where I break the loop and give you a door out of what's been draining your purpose. But you must walk through. Not later, not when you feel ready, not after the pattern plays out one more time. Now, while my hand is reaching, while my voice is loud, while the spirit is stirring, I'm not just interrupting your life. I'm rescuing it from a cycle that was never meant to define you. The fire within, I see it. The flicker inside you that once roared like a wildfire, now reduced to barely a pulse. The passion that used to stir tears in your eyes has dulled to routine, and the hunger that once drove you to your knees has faded into silence. You didn't mean to grow cold. You didn't plan to disconnect. But every time you postponed obedience, something sacred grew quieter. And now you're walking through days feeling distant from me. Not because I've moved, but because repeated hesitation has worn down your sensitivity. Child, it's not sin alone that erodes fire. It's delay. Not just outright rebellion, but small deferrals, postponed surrenders, and quiet negotiations with truth that pile up like layers of dust on your spirit, until the flame within you feels buried beneath questions, distractions, and fatigue. I need you to hear me clearly. I have not forgotten the fire I placed in you. I have not removed your assignment. I have not changed my mind about your voice, your calling, or your impact. What you feel now is not final. It's the result of lingering too long on the edges of commitment, waiting for perfect timing, perfect conditions, or perfect confidence before fully diving in. But fire doesn't wait for clarity. It responds to oxygen. I am here now, breathing fresh wind into what you thought was extinguished. The numbness you feel isn't proof of failure. It's the symptom of spiritual distance. I am closing that distance right now with this word. I haven't come to shame you. I've come to reignite what's been dormant, to call forth the buried embers and command them to burn again, not just with memory, but with fresh revelation. I've seen you go through the motions, show up physically while mentally checked out, offer praise with your mouth while your heart quietly questioned if I still had more for you. And I'm telling you, I do. I have more oil, more purpose, more intimacy, and more depth. But you must acknowledge that numbness doesn't heal through waiting. It breaks through pursuit. You cannot wait your way out of spiritual dullness. You must run back into the flame, even if it means trembling, confessing how far you've drifted, and laying down pride to start from the ground again. I don't need you to fake passion. I want your honesty, because honesty is flammable. When laid before me, I turn even ashes into altars. Child, this numbness is not permanent. It's a signal, a divine alarm reminding you that your spirit was never meant to live on autopilot. I created you for burning, for glowing with glory, for carrying heat that shakes atmospheres and sets captives free. Though the layers of delay have thickened, they are not stronger than my breath. I can blow through the dust in a moment if you let me. The call to arms. You don't have to find your way back alone. I am the path. I am the fire starter. I am the spark you can no longer create by yourself. I know how exhaustion crept in, how disappointment lowered your expectations, how repeated postponement became the strategy to avoid the pain of obedience. But I'm telling you now, numbness is not your inheritance. You were never meant to survive on spiritual fumes, never meant to blend into apathy, never created to be lukewarm in the middle of a war that demands your fire. I know this sounds urgent because it is. The longer you allow the numbness to settle, the harder it becomes to tell the difference between peace and detachment, between stillness and stagnation, and between wisdom and fear. That's why I'm confronting it now, not to crush you, but to restore you. I'm standing in front of you with matchless mercy. You are maturing in silence, growing in private, and being prepared in hiddenness, because public promise requires personal preparation. When I finally say now, nothing will be able to stop what I've set in motion for you. Don't rush my process. Don't fight my pace. Walk beside me even when the road seems slow, and you will look back with tears of thankfulness for every door I kept closed, every person I removed, and every season I prolonged. My timing is not just correct. It is divine, flawless, and surgical. Let me finish what I started. When it arrives, it will fit without forcing, it will stay without striving, and it will bless you without burdening you. The delay is not the end, child. It's the doorway to my perfect unveiling, the divine alert. Every moment you sensed a discomfort you couldn't explain. Every time a conversation left your spirit uneasy. Every recurring dream that disturbed your sleep. That was me, trying to get your attention before destruction arrived, dressed as up. But instead of pausing to discern my voice, you brushed it off as overthinking, labeling it as anxiety or coincidence, when in truth it was divine alertness rising within you. I've nudged you through people, interrupted your plans with delays, and allowed certain doors to feel magnetic yet remain sealed, not to confuse you, but to preserve you from choosing paths that would fracture your purpose. Some of what you've been calling bad luck was me blocking the detour before it became a disaster. But the more you push through the unease, the more you tune out my caution, the closer you move toward entanglements you weren't designed to endure. I didn't gift you discernment to ignore it. I gave it so you'd respond without needing chaos to confirm what peace already denied. Child, there were moments I spoke through your own hesitation. I tugged your spirit in rooms where your smile hid discomfort. I stirred your mind when you tried to justify what didn't align with truth. I unsettled your sleep when you tried to silence my presence. You keep asking for clear signs, but the clarity already arrived. It just didn't come how you expected. It came as friction, not thunder, as resistance, not flashing lights, as a subtle pause inside you when everyone else celebrated something I never endorsed. I've tried to stop you with kindness, with closed paths, and with inner tension, but the more you override it, the louder the consequences will have to be. I don't want to shout to rescue you from what you could have walked away from with just a whisper. I've warned you in ways that protect your dignity in private moments before exposure was necessary. But now you stand on a fragile edge where silence is no longer mercy. If you won't respond to the nudge, I may have to break the pattern with an interruption that feels harsh, but is wrapped in deliverance. My child, you do not need a collapse to prove what I've already spoken through conviction. You do not need betrayal to believe I was shielding you from wolves beneath sheep's attire. You do not need heartbreak to see I was never in that relationship. I only allowed time for you to recognize it yourself, but you've grown accustomed to confusing consistency with approval. Just because something persists doesn't mean I permitted it. Sometimes I allow repeated warnings because I'm giving you a chance to leave quietly, without pain, without exposure. But time is narrowing, and I cannot let you remain attached to what's draining your destiny. Listen to me. There is danger ahead. If you continue pretending you don't hear me, I will intervene, even if my intervention feels like everything crumbling, because I would rather let you fall for a moment than allow your soul to be chained for a lifetime. don't keep asking me for peace about something I already gave you discomfort for. That unrest inside you is the confirmation you've been ignoring. I'm not asking you to fear. I'm asking you to obey, even when it's uncomfortable. Because the longer you delay your response, the more tangled the consequences will become. Child, I love you too deeply to watch you walk into something you weren't created for. So I'm speaking again. Louder now, clearer now, closer now. Stop waiting for disaster to validate what your spirit already knows. I've been whispering for too long. Now I need you to move. The window is not shut, but the light slipping through it is thinning fast. If you don't move while grace is still stretching its arms toward you, the regret that follows will not be because I turned away, but because you waited too long to respond. A final invitation. I have held open the pathway longer than you know. Prolonged opportunities you didn't even realize were about to expire, and withheld judgment that could have arrived already. Not because I'm soft, but because I'm merciful beyond measure. Yet mercy was never meant to be mistaken as approval of delay. It is not permission to procrastinate. It is a final gesture to help you realign before the door becomes sealed. I know what it cost me to create that opening for you, and I know how much you've hesitated at the threshold, unsure if you were ready to walk away from what you now realize never honored who you are in me. I have not taken your silence lightly. I have heard your inner cries, watched the war between your loyalty to comfort and your craving for breakthrough. I have waited when you put other voices above mine. I have waited when you distracted yourself with plans that never carried my instruction. I have waited when you allowed busyness to bury what was eternal. But now that wait is no longer endless. I am drawing a line, not because I want to exclude you, but because I need to protect you from consequences that do not bend to sentiment. Time is sacred, child. Too much of it has been surrendered to what cannot accompany you into the future I crafted for you before you were born. I'm not here to pressure you. I'm here to alert you, to jolt your soul before you become numb to the knocking you've already ignored too long. You think another day will come, another season will open, another chance will appear. But what if this one was the turning point? What if what you're postponing now was the rescue you'll wish you grabbed later? I've seen too many walk past moments like this, and later ask me why I didn't stop them harder. I don't want you to be among them. Your time is not yet gone, but it's no longer abundant. If you keep assuming the rhythm of delay is harmless, you will wake up in a place where your choices feel permanent and my voice feels distant. Not because I abandoned you, but because you walked so far into noise that clarity became drowned out. The urgency I speak with now is not to frighten, it is to shield, to call you back before numbness turns into silence, and silence turns into captivity. Child, this is your turning hour. Not tomorrow, not late at night, not after one more attempt to do it your way. This is the sacred now where everything shifts if you decide it's finally time to trust me completely. Not just verbally, but with actions that echo your surrender. No, I'm not angry. I'm broken-hearted that you've carried burdens I would have removed had you just stepped in when I called. I'm not ashamed of your slowness. I'm saddened by the pain it added that never had to be written into your story. But despite all that, I still stand here, extending this moment, inviting you to act not out of guilt, but out of wisdom, out of love, and out of a knowing that you're not designed to stay where you've been battling just to breathe. You've grown too familiar with delay, too comfortable with postponement, too tolerant of cycles that rob your peace. I'm here to say this is the final lap before the doors close and this season concludes. Respond now, because waiting again might cost you everything that's trying to find you right now. I see you standing at the edge of a decision, trembling, not because you don't believe I am real, but because you are afraid of what obedience might cost. But I must tell you, the price of hesitation is far greater than the discomfort of surrender. The space you're in now, the pause between my invitation and your response, is narrowing, not because I want to pressure you, but because delay corrodes destiny when it's allowed to linger. You've been given countless nudges, dreams that stirred your spirit, unexpected confirmations, and moments where you felt me so near it made your heart race. And still you've allowed logic to drown out conviction, busyness to bury my whisper, and fear to blur what I made vividly clear. But hear me, this threshold you're hesitating to cross will not remain open indefinitely. There is a shift coming, a divine pivot, and you were not meant to observe it from a distance, but to walk in the center of it with me. Child, you cannot keep one foot in compromise and the other in covenant. Not now. Not when the line between light and counterfeit is being drawn so boldly across the earth. You feel the trembling beneath the surface of your soul, because my spirit is stirring the deep, not to confuse you, but to shake loose every illusion that made you think comfort could carry you into your calling. No, it's courage that opens the gate. It's yielding that unlocks the assignment. And I am not asking you for perfection. I am asking for motion, a step, a gesture, a move that shows me you've heard and will no longer stall what was meant to start already. You say you're waiting for confirmation, but in truth, I've already revealed more than enough. Your delay is no longer about lack of clarity, but about a reluctance to let go of what I've already told you cannot follow you into your future. Yes, it hurts. Detaching from what became familiar always tears at the soul, but it also makes space for me to restore what was lost while you were surviving without purpose. I need you to understand. This moment is not routine. It is sacred, it is critical, and it is pulsing with eternal weight. If you bypass it, there will be mercy, yes, but there will also be missed territory because every yes delayed rewrites timelines. And I want you aligned with what I intended for this very hour. You don't need another sign. You need to decide. You don't need another miracle to convince you. You need the resolve to walk forward even while trembling. I've seen your prayers. I've heard your aching. I've felt your hunger for breakthrough. My beloved child, this is not the end of my words to you. This is only the beginning of what I long to reveal. Do not walk away as if this moment were ordinary. Carry these words into your heart and let them ignite change within you. Every time you return here, you will hear my voice calling you deeper. Every time you listen, I will open your eyes to new truths prepared for your spirit. Do not allow the enemy to distract you or convince you to delay. Stay connected, for I am waiting to meet you again in the next message. Subscribe, return, and keep listening, because each word carries life that will strengthen you for the journey ahead. Amen.